Good morning, boys and girls. So today we're going to go ahead and finish up our Indians today. We're going to be talking about the Mountain Indians. Now, with the Mountain Indians, there was one main tribe that we're going to be focusing on, and that is going to be our Cherokee Indians. So we're not going to take notes about other tribes today. We're just going to focus on the Cherokee because they are the biggest ones within our mountain region. They also went to a few other states as well. We'll get to that in just a minute. So we are going to go ahead and just write our Cherokee, because again, we're just going to focus on our Cherokee tribe. The Cherokee, unlike some of the other tribes we've talked about, they spoke an Iroquoian language. So unlike the Catawba that we talked about yesterday, the Catawba spoke that Siouan language. Cherokee, you're going to go back to speaking that Iroquoian. Don't forget, there are some coastal plain Indians that spoke the Iroquoian language as well. The Cherokee lived in the mountains for more than 1,000 years. They were in our mountain region for more than 1,000 years. Now, with them being in our mountain region, they were also in some other states as well in their mountains. So we're going to make a little note down here just to say where they also settled, because I think that's very important. Overall, they settled in 6 states. So they also settled in Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, and South Carolina. I'm just going to put SC for South Carolina. So Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, and South Carolina, as well as North Carolina. Unlike the Catawba that moved around, they would migrate during the winter and summer months. The Cherokee settled in a village all year long. They didn't change villages, however, they did change houses. Most families in the Cherokee tribes had 2 different houses. In the winter months, because we're getting into winter, we'll start there. In the winter months, they lived in a smaller house made of clay and grass. It had no windows. But it did have a fire that was constantly going for warmth. With their winter houses not having any windows, it did have that door, so you want to move this up. It did have that door to kind of come in and out of. With their winter houses as well, with the fire, just so it wouldn't get too hot, their winter houses had an opening at the top of their houses. That would, little hole in the top of their house, they would let the smoke out, and they would build the fire right under that opening, so the smoke would go straight out, so it wouldn't get too foggy in their houses either. Now in the summer months, again, these are both still in the same villages. They're not migrating anywhere like the Catawba did. In the summer months, they lived in a box-shaped house, usually made of wood, and it was completely left open on one side. And that was to help keep it cool, let those breezes in that they would get in those mountain regions just during those hot summer months to keep them nice and cool. Okay, so again, they're not moving during these months like the Catawba. They're still staying in that village. They're just switching their houses. Alrighty, friends. Also with the Cherokee, they held something called a green corn ceremony. And this would be held yearly. This was during the corn harvest, and they would hold a green corn ceremony as a way to thank what they believed to be kind of the gods, the people in charge of the weather. They would thank them for a good harvest whenever those ears of corn would start growing, and then the corn itself would start coming off and turning that green, just to thank them for it not turning brown, which would represent that there was a drought or that they died. So a green corn ceremony was a way to celebrate that they were going to have a good harvest. They also had something called an eagle dance. An eagle dance is a victory celebration. So if they went to war, if they went into battle and they won, they would have an eagle dance to celebrate that victory. Okay, I'm going to make a little note underneath here as well because there's some interesting stuff we want to add before we start talking about their government a little bit more. They would hold ceremonies, ball games, and feasts in an open plaza. So every village had a council house in the middle of it, but then it would also have that open plaza, just a very big open space where they'd be able to have, again, the ceremonies, ball games. Ball games were not played how we play them now. They would use corn and beans to play ball games, and then to have, again, kind of those victory feasts in that open space so everyone from the village could come and partake in the celebrations. Okay? All right, boys and girls, we're going to go and dive into their form of government. Their form of government, it is something different. However, it does kind of follow the government of another tribe that we talked about. Okay, so we'll compare those in just a minute. The Cherokee tribes had a confederation. They had a confederation. So they did not have a democracy like the Catawba, but they had a confederation. A confederation is a government made up of smaller groups that work for the same goals. So just like the Catawbas, everyone from the village was allowed to speak, they were allowed to attend. However, there were two chiefs within the villages that would lead the meetings. The two different chiefs that we would have, there would be a red chief, and he was in charge or led the meetings during times of war. And then there was a white chief, and he led during times of peace. Okay, so red chief was during times of war, white chief was during times of peace. Again, when they did meet together, they would meet in that council house. In that middle of the village where everyone could go. And again, with the council house, with everyone coming, all of the villagers were allowed to speak. Again, that was men and women. They're allowed to bring their problems and hopefully come to a resolution and get their problems fixed. All right, boys and girls, go ahead and add these notes to your notebook. When you're done, your assignment is waiting for you under Google Classroom. Thank you.